This program raises questions. This program is for people who find it hard to trust God. The best answers are wrapped in flesh and blood. My friends, people who are enduring real tragedies every single day. Quadriplegia, muscular dystrophy, stroke, bankruptcy, loneliness, singleness. We're going to talk to those very people who have touched my life. I've always been drawn to stories of people who are active and adventurous, real go-getters, people who love a challenge, who grab life by the tail and give it a good shake. Well, Mike King has such a story. This is one powerhouse athlete, a handsome on-the-go guy who had the world at his feet. But sometimes all that bravado can get you into trouble, especially when that trouble completely and totally alters your life. So let's listen in on this remarkable story of my friend, Mike King.
If you're an athlete before your accident, you want to be an athlete after. And it's just great to have the technology and all the stuff out there, which has filled the empty spots in my life that weren't there those first 5 to 7 years after my accident. I've always lived in the country, and growing up on a farm, working construction, I am more of a morning person than I am a night person. I love getting up and watching the day start. It reminds me that every day is a new start. It doesn't matter what happened the day before. This day can be different. You can change things. You can make them happen. That's why I love getting out and riding bike.
Well, it was on a Sunday afternoon, August the 13th, 1978. When we got the first phone call, which was late afternoon. And it was one of Mike's friends. He called to say that Mike was in an accident and everything's going to be okay. He does have 2 broken legs, but that's all we knew till later, about 10:30 that evening then is when the bomb dropped because they weren't sure he would survive.
And I remember 24 hours later waking up in the hospital at Foothills Hospital in the city of Calgary. Of course, I remembered I was on a motorcycle trip, knew I was in a hospital, figured I must have had an accident, but wasn't able to talk or speak at that time yet. Reading the accident report, they said I rear-ended a car that was pulling out on the highway. Whether he never saw me coming, I'm not sure. But hit the back end of the car, it threw me up off the bike. I was banged up pretty bad. They actually didn't expect me to make it.
Literally from the neck down, his ribs were broken front and back, and he had internal injuries.
When I was in the hospital and the doctor told me that you broke your back, you severed your spinal cord, you're never going to walk again, not only was I angry at him, but I was angry at God. How can you do this to me? How can you let something like this happen? And I believe God could heal. I believe God is all-powerful, as much today as I did back then. But why doesn't it happen? And I struggled with that, and I said, man, there must be something I'm doing wrong in my life that God doesn't heal me. And of course that anger and that frustration of wanting to do what I used to do, wanting to be able to play ball again, to climb a tree, to run across the yard, to go snow skiing. I think about those things and it just made me more angry because I couldn't do it anymore. And not as much in the hospital as when I was finally discharged from rehab, did those feelings and that struggle really hit home. when you start getting into day-to-day activities, that's when depression really sunk in my life. And that anger started to build up. And I'm not a person that I'll let it out right away. It would bottle up inside of me and a lot of times explode on people that were next to me at that time.
So going into his accident, you know, a major change for him, and I can imagine in his mind, he's not sure what to do with it, what to make of it. So in that time frame, it was hard to get words out of him.
About 1 month after my accident, my grandpa Zook passed away. And he was taken from this earth because of colon cancer. I visited my grandpa Zook in the hospital before I left on the motorcycle trip and had an eerie, weird feeling that this was the last time I was going to see him.
Because my father had asked the grandsons if they would carry him to his resting place. They would be the pallbearers. And Mike promised him he would.
Which, because of my injury, I wasn't able to be with him his last days and even attend his memorial service that they have for him. But I remember my mom coming up to the hospital after his service to share with me those last couple days. And she said, Grandpa Zook, we call him Paw, during his last moments, opened his eyes, looked at her, and said that Mike's going to be all right. Mike's going to make it. God told me that. And a couple minutes later, he passes away. When she shared that with me, it just seemed like those words were coming right from God, or right from Christ, assuring me that I had the strength, I had the courage to get through this time. Although with all that was going on around me, it was hard to really see that. Probably the biggest thing that made an impact on me was my family, my friends, my church let me know that it's okay for you to be angry. It's okay for you to struggle like that. We're still going to love you. We're still going to be there for you. And they showed that to me. And it's what really pulled me out of that difficult time in my life.
I don't know if there was anyone that there was a moment that did it for him, but there was one day where he decided that if he's going to get out of this bed, it's going to have to be him. And at that point, it all started.
I heard of two guys that had crossed from San Francisco to New York, George Murray and Phil Carpenter, who are kind of our pioneers of wheelchair sports here in America. And I thought about that idea of pushing across country. And I said, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I want to do it. Instead of going coast to coast, I ought to do something a little different.
And he's going to do this wild idea trip from Fairbanks, Alaska to Washington. When he came to me with this crazy idea, he asked if I would go along, would be a part of the support team, and the one thing, obviously I was excited about it in my younger years and really didn't have much of a care in the world, and I was like, sure, I'll drop, a job and whatever and take off and do it.
And looking back on how that whole trip started, again, I knew God was in it. God put the people in place for me to meet those first couple days when I didn't think I could do it. I wanted to quit after 3 days into the trip because I just wasn't getting down the highway doing the miles that I needed to and thinking that I could do. I thought I trained hard enough, but getting out there and pushing every day just really took a toll on my arms, my hands, and until I got into the routine, it was frustrating and again, just losing sight of my goal.
It was ugly at times. I just wanted to hook to him and drag him up the hill. I think back to that time and how did, getting through it, again, reminded me of moments back at his rehab when he said nothing and we just sat in the room. There's times where he just pulled over on these long, you know, couple 3, 4, 5 mile grades of a hill that he had to push. And I just thought, how are we ever going to get to Washington at this rate?
High school students that spent the 4th day with me helped me to get that focus back. They reminded me of Philippians chapter 3 that my cross-country coach in high school taught me. And that day that I spent with them was the first day I put in 60 miles.
Going back to his determination, there was no way. I said this is what I was going to do, and there's no backing out now. And he pushed every square inch of that 5,600 mile trip.
And I was trying to figure out what made the difference. And it was constant questions and just a fun time of having someone with me that whole day, a group of 20 to 30 high school students, asking questions of what's Lancaster County like, what's it going to be like when you get to DC, is President Reagan going to be there to meet you? Some questions I didn't have answers for, but I was forgetting what was behind me, and I was striving forward to what lies ahead. They kept my mind off of my hands hurting, my shoulders hurting, that emotional, mental frustration of not being able to do what I thought I could do. And I was looking at where I was trying to go. I thought to myself, if I can do that the rest of this summer, I'm going to make it to DC. I'm going to get there.
From Edmonton all through the States to Washington, it seemed to have grown more and more. A lot of news team, media, picking up on what's going on, what Mike King is doing, and the calls that it was for. And yeah, it seemed to grow each week or each day.
Well, see, we met him in St. Louis, and he had just come over the mountains there, and he was fried. His skin was brown, his nose was blistered just from the heat and the sun. And I said, Mike, we're taking you along home with us. You're just gonna, you came this far, you achieved a lot. No, he said, I'm finishing this.
It's amazing, you know, obviously there's a lot of time between there until he got into the East Coast here. But when I first time I saw him, he was just like this machine that you just couldn't shut down. You can succeed when you set your mind to it. It was pretty incredible to be in Washington, watching him come down Pennsylvania Avenue and the whole thing to the end. It was a huge celebration.
And I can remember that day coming up over the crest and finally seeing the Capitol building. And it's like, wow, I made it. That's kind of the finish line that I was visualizing all summer long, was seeing the Capitol building. But also I had a little bit of disappointment because it was like, wow, what am I going to do now? That's going to make my life as exciting as it was this past summer.
From that point on, he was able to, you know, with his accomplishments, minister to people in the same situation as what he had gone through.
Through that experience, the summer of 1985, is when I found out about all the wheelchair sports that are out there. Traveling through the West, Colorado especially, where they just seem to be booming and overly excited about helping people with disabilities want to get out there and do what they can, especially in the skiing program, but also found out about the road racing competitions, track and field, and wheelchair athletes who would come out and push through the city limits of the different towns with me. And all the people that I met throughout that summer is what opened my eyes to all the wheelchair sports that are out there. Of course, when I got home and finished that trip, I wanted to do it. I wanted to get back into it because I knew what running did for me in high school and those couple years after. And it was still something in my blood that I wanted to try and accomplish. And that's what opened my mind and the door to all the sports that I'm involved in today. It's just one of those things that I still love to do, although I love to win. I'd be lying if I didn't say that, but I don't have to win the race, or I don't have to win every race in order for me to enjoy it. I enjoy going out there and competing, even if it's against my own time, just to kind of see where I'm at, or just to give me a different perspective on it. Competing in a race this weekend.
On your mark, get set, go!
It's called a duathlon, where you push a 5K road race, you do a 12-mile bike, and push another 5K road race.
Mike is a very determined guy. He sets his mind to something and he's going to finish it. He told me it may not be pretty, but it'll get done.
I love doing that kind of stuff, and just meeting other wheelchair athletes, getting to see where they're at, and if I can coach or give people pointers and helping them to become a better athlete or a better person in their life, it's what I love to do.
I think where Mike is now, he's had all these experiences, and this many years later, he wants other people to have that same hope.
We're going to meet Javier, kid with cerebral palsy, and is enjoying his year with the Conestoga Valley track team. Going to give him some pointers today and hopefully help him make that turn in the 200 a little better, so he can get a better PR, personal record time that he's been shooting for this year.
Mike loves a challenge. We often call him the Joni of Eastern Pennsylvania, because Mike is able to talk to people, to relate to people, to touch lives, to change lives, because of how God has gifted him, and then he is able to take those gifts and use them in his ministry.
You're pushing well.
And so it doesn't matter if he's coming alongside of a young man who is struggling in high school because of his disability, or if he goes to a rehab and visits a 50-year-old man who has recently become a quadriplegic. Mike's able to sit alongside those people and to let them know that their life has purpose and their life has meaning, and that he will be with them through this time.
It gives me the strength to continue every day, and the neatest thing that I've found in sharing my life with other people is it comes right back and encourages me all the more.
Mike has used his disability not only for his good, but for God's glory. And initially when Mike first had his accident, he will tell you that he just wanted to stay home and be more quiet and reclusive. But his friends especially would not allow that, and they pulled him out and got him involved. And he came to learn that even with the disability, my life has purpose.
Serving other people isn't just a one-way street. It comes back and helps you at a time when you're going to need it.
I know. I don't have a coffee cup. This is not normal.
Everybody's supposed to cheers.
Oh, yay, it's mine!
Doors opening and closing for me seemed like it was leading me in the direction of going to work full-time for Joni and Friends. It gave me the opportunity to share my life, showing that God makes a difference in my life.
One of the neat things about being an area office and a staff member in an area office is, we hit the ground running with disability ministry. And so even though it may appear that Mike spends a lot of time behind his desk, when Mike really comes alive is when he is going into a church and he's working with a disability team there on how they can be more welcoming or improve what they are doing for families affected by disability.
What keeps me connected to God in my life? And I realized that it's the hope that He provides for us. It's that assurance that I know a better day is coming. I know there's tough times. We all go through tough times, but we have a group of people around us to encourage us. I've seen that here. And I praise God for that.
Mike is one of those people that if someone says to him, "You can't do this," he's going to say, "I can do this. And by God's help, I can do this." And he's been able to translate that, that spiritual stubbornness into coming alongside of other people who may be just experiencing self-defeat or feel like they can't have a life because of their disability. When he goes to China, and just his presence in China is a huge voice to the people that you can have a disability and you can have purpose and you can have ministry to people with disability.
I guess I don't really see his disability. I just see Mike. And so the attributes, I don't see them so tied to the disability. Like the biggest attribute with him, and that's so helpful for our marriage even, is he is just and this goes back to his faith, he is just a very connected person to the Lord, and anything that it is, whether it's related to his disability or something else in our life, he's very connected and very steady. He's not pushed around like a lot of us are by circumstance.
God is receiving glory from Mike's life in the wheelchair.
Mike has taken what he has and gone for it. I think so many people in Mike's situation would say, I mean, young person, all of a sudden athletic, life ended when he had the motorcycle accident. That's what the world may think, but Mike, absolutely not. That was his plan for his life. And he has taken it and full speed ahead and said, God, what can I do with it?
I put myself in that situation and I wonder how I would react, where I would be. I don't know if I'd have that strong a will. We are in this family a very strong-willed, each of us in our own way. But to persevere through what he went through, to me, it's just amazing. I don't know. I don't think any of us know until we're in that situation.
That's the farm I grew up on in there. Still pretty much looks the same.
Mike's a nice, wonderful person, but he didn't break his back and then say everything's fine. I mean, he was angry about it. And, it's understandable, but we talked about it one time. I said you had a choice to make. Even as Christians, we still have a choice how we're going to react to, things that have happened in our life. And he chose bad things that have happened. And he chose, at some point, to trust God, to let him use him. And that really was a choice that, people with disabilities have to make at some point. They've got to decide if they're going to live fully for God, connected to him, or if they're going to allow this to make them bitter and angry. And I think he feels called to letting them see that there's a different way, that God can bring you through it.
People are drawn to Mike because he has that zest for life. The disability draws them in, and then they sense that zest and that thing that nothing is going to stop me. I'm going to move forward with my life. And I think Mike has said, especially with Christ in my life, I can move forward. What can I do? And obviously from everything he's done, from his wheelchair trip to marathons, traveling the world, who would think that a disability has made that happen? But without his disability, he wouldn't have traveled the world. And so his disability has given him the avenue to do that and to share Christ all over the world.
God has a plan for each of us. It's not a plan B, it's plan A. And although I don't understand why disability happens, God's plan for you is the plan He had and He has for you. It doesn't change. He's shown me that through the experiences that I've had, through the opportunities that I've had, through the circumstances and the people that I've had the chance to meet. And I can see that He's led me right where I'm at today. So it's just a great opportunity to get back on the bike, to get out there and enjoy life, knowing that it's God's plan for my life. It's a plan to prosper. It's a plan to succeed. It's a plan that provides hope. And that's the kind of foundation that my life is built on. That's the kind of success, the kind of hope, and the dreams that I like to share with other people. And it's what makes this life all worthwhile, even though I live it with a disability. Because I know I can succeed. I can make it because Christ lives within me. And that's all you need.
Mike King is still active and adventurous, but the adventures that grip his heart now involve other people, needy, hurting people, people who are looking for a hope and help that goes far beyond what this world can give. And 1 Corinthians chapter 9 is his motto. Beginning in the 23rd verse, it says, "I do all this for the sake of the gospel." Everyone who competes in athletic games goes into strict training. They do it to get a crown that will not last, but we do it to get a crown that'll last forever. This extraordinary man has quite a crown awaiting him, and his example should speak to you and me, especially if we tend to lean on our own physical abilities. I pray that Mike's story will help you examine the sort of props that you lean on in life, and I pray his example will help you go for the crown that'll last forever, the glory of knowing Jesus Christ and making his story your own.